Hi, I'm Richard Carlton, creator of fmtraining.tv. I want to welcome everyone to an awesome training day where we create great live stream videos as well as training courses to help you make great FileMaker custom applications. But what I want to do today is talk about a very interesting topic. Before we get going on that, we want to outline today's topic is going to be in the area of right here, probably from here to here. So it's if you're brand new, like if you're Bunny and you're brand new to the FileMaker platform, then what we're going to do is we're going to say that it might be a little advanced for you, but it's definitely below a senior level. So it's this intermediate step. Once again, this is a topic for today is on security. So the conversation about security is a very important one. We're going to involve Christian here if he wants to talk about it. And it's obviously a good day for questions as we go along. Security is an interesting topic, right? Because people say, oh, there's security. We need usernames and passwords on a FileMaker file or a database. And yeah, that's the very beginning basics of security. But really, as you start to get a little bit more elaborate, if you have a team, if it's only you, then none of this matters, right? Because it's up to you to behave yourself. Really, putting a username and password on the file and it's only you, that's enough, you're done. But if you have a team, then, and like we have a team of somewhere around 25 to 30 people, depending upon the month and the time of year and things like that. There is security that you need for like where you're going to protect like, you know, financial information. You don't want people getting in seeing confidential information. That's what I consider like your black hat or secret, like legit security stuff. Yeah, so the issue, the conversation is about workflow security. And what is workflow security? The workflow security is the idea at a more elaborate level is if someone is in a invoice or they have a process where they're going to create an estimate, and then from the estimate certain things happen, and then you collect the signature, and then from the signature you from the estimate, you get a signature, then then you transfer it. There's a button in here, for example, to transfer it. If you see right here in this section over here, if I zoom in a little bit, you can transfer it to the invoice. And so this is all workflow. If I transfer this to the invoice right here, then we have an invoice, and we have a note somewhere that says it was transferred from an invoice specific blah, blah, blah. So that's workflow. The thing is that with an organization, if you have multiple people doing it, like you have a sales team, you want the sales team to follow a specific workflow, follow the business process that you have set up within your organization, or maybe you're the developer and you're trying to help the owner of the business have his staff enforce the workflow, right? And so we're talking about workflow security. So workflow security is just to ensure that people follow a process, and the security that you need to do for that is totally at a different level. It's because here's the thing: if you put a lot of security in front of people, humans are humans, right? Like you saw it 20 seconds ago when I asked for a file to had a code put into it and sent to me, and the engineers, people doing what humans do, they just cut the corner and give you the piece that they think you need, and they don't follow the workflow, right? That was an example. So what happens? They circumvent the workflow and they don't give you what you need. And so you have to kind of find a way of enforcing the workflow, because people in their default environment are lazy, right? I'm lazy. Everyone's lazy. I mean, I work really hard, but everyone has that line where be like, I'm not going to really do that. I'll just kind of cut the corner, right? And so when people do that with a workflow, it can screw up a business process. The trick is to enforce that in FileMaker. But if you make it really intrusive, like every time you're going to do a new estimate or get a signature, you have to put a security code in the database, right? And so what happens if you make it too intrusive, people won't do it. And then they literally, you'll have this great FileMaker system, and basically you have a lack of adoption, right? And people go back to literally Post-it notes, right? They're running around with these things, and they're taking these and they're writing little Post-it notes, and they're taking them off and sticking them on the monitor over here, and writing notes in Excel and Post-it notes, literally. And so, like the other day, the financial accounting ladies in my office were getting frustrated with something. The database, our internal system, wasn't doing something. So before long, they were in Google Sheets, which is Excel. So I see it everywhere. And so then we went to one of our engineers and had them build out the pieces they needed so they didn't have to use Google Sheets, right? But people get desperate. They do what they got to do. So let's talk about how to enforce workflow. And your, like I said, your mileage may vary, your cases may vary. So it's important to understand about the training here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on one level up on this. And that is that in the 19 course, we spent a lot of time talking about security. If you come down here and you look at security right here, we spent a lot of time talking about security. And specifically what I want to point out is there's security through obscurity, which is kind of what we're talking about today a little bit. And there's these other two. This video here is really great. I mean, obviously, if you haven't been through any of these, if you haven't understanding how accounts and privileges work, it's really not a conversation about accounts and privileges. It's the idea of trying to direct people through a specific process, but at the same time, don't mistake your process for being mission like confidential. Like, once again, black hat hacker kind of get in and get the credit card numbers, for example. I mean, you shouldn't save credit card numbers, but if you did, right, that kind of secret, if you're a medical institution, the medical patient information, the HIPAA related material, you don't want that getting exposed. You have to have encryption. You have to take that security very seriously. That's different than when someone has already logged in and you're trying to guide them through a process. And so I'm going to leave this up here for the moment. I'm going to bring that back down. What I want to do is I want to show this. This is a very important demo right here. It's super basic, but it's really important. So let's say that we've already logged onto this file. We use a username and password to log onto the file. And what we want to do is we want to be able to show certain things or hide certain things. And there's a really important skill set right here. And it's a very basic demo. This came up. One of you was asking about this. I thought it was, I don't know if it was Candido or someone on YouTube. I think it was Candido or Thomas. It may have been him. And so they were asking me about how do I lock records, and do this basically work level security. This is about 3 weeks ago, and I scheduled this event because of that. The idea is that normally, if you have this sample file, this is one of FileMaker's older starter solutions. Nick Hunter built this. If you click in here, you can edit this stuff. So you could come in here and say, Mr. You could say it's Richard, and the idea is that this is Carlton, for example, and then what you can do is you can, if I zoom in here, I can check the record that's locked. Now, this doesn't have to be visible at all. All this is a flag that we set. It could be hidden. It could be a wide variety of things could set this. But say that we have done this information and we lock it. We don't want it to be edited anymore. So I click into the field and it won't let me edit the field anymore. And so you'd say, well, you went into the security system, you did this, you did that. And so this is this idea of security through obscurity, kind of where you hide stuff. Really all we're doing is that this won't stop a hacker from tearing into this thing and getting the data out. But what this does is that all the employees who already have access in here, it might help them not enter or edit something in this spot right here. And so how do we do this? This is a very simple file. It's a really great little demo. I could think of probably 20 ways of solving this problem, and then I'm going to ask for Christian's opinion here in a second. But the idea is that I'm clicking in here, and so how do we do this? I'm going to go to layout mode. So first off, we have a field there called, it's hard to see it, but it's called flag record locked, okay? And so all it is a 0 and a 1, I believe, in there. So what we do is that we have all these triggers on here. So what we did is we scooped up all the fields. We selected a whole bunch of fields. I'm going to grab a bunch of fields like this. And then I'm going to go up under, normally I'd right click on it, but I'm trying to show it to you. Here's script. Normally I just right click and say script triggers. But I'm showing you the menu here. And so we go script triggers right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you folks can see this. And what I have is on object enter. And it says edit field if possible. So it's running a script. And you're like, ugh, okay? And so what happens, we got to take a look at this script. So if I go under script workspace, I have a script down here, edit if possible. It's really simple. Look how simple this is. So if it's locked, right, what it does is it commits the record. So the person was trying to lock, by clicking into a field and starting to edit, you can lock the record. It commits it, it unwinds that, and then it exits the script with condition 0. Okay. If it's not locked, it exits with condition 1. So what happens, it's important to understand, if I leave this over here like this, I come back over here and I'm just going to right click again, say script triggers. It's important to understand that this is a pre-script trigger, right? Script triggers happen and I'm trying to, let me see if I can do this. You can't really see me over here. Oh, I'm really big now. Let's see if I can do that. Bring that down here. It's like, I'm like trying to wave my hands at the screen, but it's hard to do that when you can't see me. There we go. So here's the thing with script triggers. They are pre-script triggers or post-script triggers, which means that there's an event here, like an object keystroke or object modifier, object validate. That trigger will fire either right before you're about to do it or right after you did it already. And so if it's a pre-script trigger, you have the opportunity to tell FileMaker, don't do it, right? So a pre-script trigger, you can pass back a 0 or a 1, a script parameter back, or script result. It's basically a script parameter, but it's a script result, goes backwards, and it tells the script trigger, don't run, right? Yeah, see what happens is in this case it's actually an object here. This is a PostScript trigger here, but we overwrite it. But some of these are like on object keystroke, right? This will run when is received for the active object. This one runs before, this one runs after. The way I like this one better because that's why we execute the commit or the exit. And so what you can do is like a keystroke is like where you press A or B. So like Andre had the great demo where he was using the cursor keys to go up and down in the demo. So you would push the down cursor key, it would intercept it with an on object keystroke or whatever it is. And then it would say, should I show this? Should I do this? Or run a script that actually moves you up and down. Like go to the previous portal row, go to the next portal row. So you can intercept things. This one actually, I think, Christian, are you there? I think this one is a post in this case. I ended up going with this one because I liked it. Object keystroke is a pre, so you can intervene and stop it before it goes. But all you have to do is apply this. So to all the fields in here to do this, all you have to do is basically come into every field you want and apply it. If you don't want it applied to certain fields, you would turn it off. So like if I said, well, I don't want to change the first and last name, but I might change this group over here, right? So I right click it, I say script triggers, I turn it off, okay? And so I go back to browse mode, it's locked, I try to change stuff. Oh, that one didn't have it on there. This one, see that? Can't do it, can't do it, can't do it. I get down to group, it allows me to edit that, right? So this is where you could expose certain items or hide certain items. Christian, what do you think about this? Because you run into workflow management all the time, right?
Yeah, and I can't see your screen, but it sounds like basically you're using a script trigger on an object keystroke to prevent them from editing fields that you don't want edited.
Yeah, I mean, how would you normally handle that? Yeah, it's a on object. Yeah, you should. Well, I'm not showing my screen.
I'm just a few seconds behind on the stream there, but yeah, that would work. One of the more recent I've done a few different things. One of them that I'm not necessarily in love with is you have two objects layered on top of each other, one that you can enter, one that you can't. Calvin actually found an interesting way to prevent a user from like editing an entire invoice, which is we put a web viewer over the layout, and you have the same lock flag basically, like this is locked, this is unlocked, and you make the web viewer invisible, and they can see everything on screen, but they can't actually click into everything. So that blocks an entire screen. With one of my more recent customers, I did the security plus the web viewer, so they actually couldn't at a security level. And then the unlock, rather than setting just a direct flag, it would actually set a global, so they could edit that record, but if they forgot to lock it afterwards and they walked away, the global would clear and relock the record for them.
Yeah, the web viewer officially is a hack. I mean, putting a web viewer over the top of content, because web viewers now behave a little differently in 19, so I don't even know if that would work in 19 still like that. Yeah, Ron says he has a photographic memory on the subscription. Yeah, we'll have to fix that. Yeah, the idea with these MailSoft with Ron is that this is we're locking workflow. So it's kind of like you have, okay, so you have to get down to people's motivations. It's really kind of an important concept. If you have a workflow where you're just trying to guide the staff along and make sure that they're not using post-it notes and they're doing things correctly. But there's this movie years ago, and it was a great line in the movie, and it was some big shoot 'em up movie, but it was a lot of intellectual components to it and the complexities of violence, right? Really. And so this mafia guy's talking, and they have this doctor, and they're talking to this doctor who works for the mafia, and he says doctor has a legit life and a private life, and the doctor goes, well, I'll just take the cash and go and rescue the hostage or give the cash to the kidnappers and do this. And the head mafia guy grabs a guy, throws him up against the wall, and he goes, cash is what you take to the grocery store. $13 million is motivation with a universal adapter. It's one of my most favorite quotes ever because it explains, like if you drop 13 million bucks in front of most people, there's not a lot what most people wouldn't do to get that 13 million bucks and make it their own. So it's motivation. So in your workflow, is there motivation for people to misbehave? Is there financial motivation for them to misbehave? We're talking about guiding people who are kind of lazy as opposed to putting $13 million worth of motivation if they can find a way around it. That's the deciding factor in this conversation. Is it workflow so they just get you don't do the work without the signature, and you want to have the signature so it's a legal thing, and so they make sure they don't forget the signature. Or is there motivation that if they skip these things, they can make an extra $5,000 on a deal? Then you need much more serious security, right? We need to look at using the security credentials in the system, record locking security, layout security. We cover that in our training at great length. And so Christian, you run into both these things, right? The question is, at what point do people become motivated to misbehave? I guess is the question.
Absolutely. With most of my customers, because the time invested into the security is high, not to say that people should not do this. They should set up the security. But the way that I'll phrase with a lot of my customers is we can build rooms without doors. They go to the places where they don't want their employees to. And this doesn't necessarily even have to be malice. It can be someone who isn't trying to do harm but does harm data. So we talk about places outside of just causing raises where someone could go and change data to cause reparable harm to the system, and we tend not to give those users access to those parts of the system, even without getting into the security level of things.
The idea is that it's an important distinction to make here, and I'm going to go back and answer questions in a second. But the important distinction to make is that people will see this kind of security here, and they will use this kind of the checkbox or the script trigger security to guard the financials, to guard the $13 million or whatever the number is, right? Whatever number is motivated. Like my sales guy, if I told him that he could make an extra $5,000 a month if he went out and met customers face to face. But then he didn't want to do that, so he just make it up. I mean, at some point, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, someone might be tempted to kind of cook the books and falsify stuff. I mean, we have customers. I mean, we have one customer who runs around, and I'm not going to get into detail, but they have a service fleet, and we have multiple companies with service fleets. But the service fleet people were saying, "Oh yeah, we're out working," and they had the GPS tracking capability in the iPads, which they were running around the service vehicles, and they, "Oh yeah, we're working hard." They're all at home watching football or TV. The GPS and FileMaker would ping and then make a log entry of where they were at, and so they were said. So the problem is that you have to find workflow security versus like really serious security. So security through obscurity is this kind of idea where you're using kind of basic, quick and dirty security, and you can use it to manage workflow. But more importantly, you don't want to use it to manage the $13 million of the motivation. Now, another kind of interesting conversation here, and I will see if I can find this in here, is the is it bio? I'm not seeing that term. I have to search for that. Dave Henderson, actually it's a free video, I think. Dave Henderson did a project with a customer with a bio, what do you call the fingerprint scanning thing? It's I'm having a mental break on my terminology, but you're scanning your fingerprints, and they were doing this with one of the biggest hamburger chains on the planet, and they would go in and employees would scan their fingerprint in, so the FileMaker could identify them rapidly, and it wasn't like they're running their fingerprints like, hey, see if this guy's got fingerprints on file for robbing a bank. No, they're just trying to rapidly log the person into the system, and then one way to do it was a fingerprint. Well, the way the fingerprint software works, it's all script controlled, which is not super secure. And so we were using some tech from Productive Computing, and they have a I'm spacing. Christian, you know what I'm talking about? The bio. He's off.
The fingerprint thing?
Yeah, the fingerprint thing, but I keep saying bioneural, but that's not neural. That's brain stuff. So whatever. I'm spacing.
I know what you mean. I can't think of the word.
Yeah, it's biometric. Thank you is the word I'm looking for. So, and so it's script control, and you can hack your way around scripts. So script control, like we just did a security thing over here. We did it with scripts. Okay, this can be hacked. Like you give us one of those. If I come back over here to these people can think of 5 ways to get around this. Okay, once again, so this is workflow security, not $13 million of financial security, right? Super security. So, but the biometric is the same way because it's script control. So if you're controlling the security through scripting, like trying to lock people out of certain areas, you can get into the system, get the data. Like there's ways of getting into FileMaker. If you have a password to get in, and then you're trying to keep people out of stuff by using scripts, you can go through different methods. You can export all the data out of FileMaker and get that data, for example. If you're really clever, you could like try to write it back in there, doing 10 different ways of doing that. So it really gets to a point where if you really need to manage the the $13 million security, then you need to go into here. You need to set up the proper privileges, proper accounts, etc. For that conversation, the easiest way to do it is just to go back and watch the training course over here. I'm going to cancel that. Come back over here and watch these. Start at the top, but mostly you want to look at the video 1214 and 1215, the record level security. I watched these last night to make sure they're current. We checked them before, but I wanted to make sure they were good, and they're great. We have an older sample file over here, but they're fantastic. So let's take some questions now. Christian,
I just want to chime in there, Richard, and say, I don't think that it's one or the other. And I've seen some of the questions popping up. For example, with that customer I have where we don't allow entry to some of those fields, or we have the web viewer, I do use the FileMaker security in the background. But for developers who only use the security, you end up with users ending up on layouts or seeing fields that say no access, or they get error messages that are really confusing to the users. And so even if you use the security backend, having a workflow that prevents people from getting to areas or seeing data that they shouldn't makes the database, I think, more understandable and usable. Because I know you mentioned yesterday to avoid using the validations on the back end. In our book, one of the reasons it mentions that you shouldn't use those validations is that error message that FileMaker has that gets displayed. No one knows what those mean. It's very confusing. So it's better as a developer to control the environment so that you can tell users what you want them to see rather than a basic FileMaker dialog.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're taking turns answering questions here about that. David, Scott says, why a web viewer instead of an invisible button? Web viewers have this, before 19 had a really funky behavior, Scott, where on Windows and on Mac and on WebDirect, you couldn't layer things around with a web viewer. It would block and do things like that. That's such a hack that I really recommend you don't go down that road. I would make things invisible or not visible. I would do something like that. I agree, Scott. I would do it that way. I don't trust the web viewer, remember, is an operating system construct. A web viewer is literally a hole in FileMaker. The FileMaker is not in control of it. Literally, like this is a web viewer right here. That if I took a power saw and sawed the crap out of my screen and made a big box hole here, and then FileMaker was driving everything else here, that's what a web viewer is. And so because of some funky, weird interactions between FileMaker and the operating system for that hole, Calvin decided to exploit that to try to use that as so that's fine. It's fine. If it breaks, Calvin's going to have to get with the customer and fix it. So not my first choice on that one. Could you create security and not edit the record, flag one, but be able to customize the error by... Yeah, you can do anything you want with a script trigger, right? So if you want to do... Oh, could you correct? So David's saying do like the legit security. Would you not be able to customize the error dialog? Oh yeah, that's where you're talking about the error number. Yeah. If you watch these videos, we talk about a couple. There's a couple custom functions that you can do, or not custom functions, couple get functions that you can do. If I go to help here, I'm going to bring this up real quick. So we are in 19 help. I want to do get, and this is part of kind of the training that's in the video course. Of course, it's going to screw that up. It's 2 words. Oh, there it is. It did get it. Okay, great. So get record access is a get function. It evaluates the current record you're on. It returns a 0 if you're totally locked out. You get a 1 if you can view, and a 2 if you can view or edit. I'm assuming 2 also allows you to delete too. So keep in mind that there's also this get layout access function. And so this is very similar. So that's why we have these 2 videos over here. Record level security, layout access security, right? And so there's 2 techniques covered in here. One of them is this going through the security credentials and basically locking people out. That's why I referenced the training here so much, because those 2 videos there are 30 or 45 minutes and they're animated. It's better training than what we can do in real time here. But you can't ask questions of me when I'm on a recording. So the benefit here is we can ask questions. So there's get functions. You can get that information back. Dialog. So David, did we answer your question there, hopefully? Elzo, biometrics. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, my brain malfunctioned. I do apologize for that. Yeah, so that's a Nick trick. So, and that gets back to lean design, which it's mostly what Nick does is high performance stuff, but then every once in a while he just does really neat UI stuff and it gets lumped under the lean design. But the accordion layer, right, the accordion stuff, those are basically slide controls that you can show or not show. So once again, if you try to do security with hiding or showing a slide control, once again, this is just one thing I did here. If you want to like show certain slides or that kind of thing, understand that if you have certain types of access into the system, even if you give someone read and write level access, and they also happen to be someone over here at this level of skill set, they can get in and export the data out of your system, okay? Now, they may not be able to edit the data, but they can definitely read it all. And so I'll tell you a quick story. It was very embarrassing. So how do I know about this topic, right? Well, when you're doing this 30 years and you get mouthy like I do sometimes, and you make a bet with someone, then sometimes you have to eat crow or stick your foot in your mouth or all of the above. So there's this developer who's in Texas. He's really a sharp guy. And what he had was he built his own 2-factor authentication to FileMaker. Now, FileMaker in the security, let me be upfront about this, in their standard security, in the FileMaker Pro and the FileMaker Server product, if I go over here, manage security, which I'm in this file. This is the lock file. By the way, we're going to have a training course taking this player apart. That's scheduled on the books. It'll take 3 days to take this thing apart for you folks to see it. And then we're going to give you the unlocked version without the records in it, but we'll put some sample data in it. But it's really cool stuff. But my brain space, Christian, help, Mayday. The bet. Okay, so he creates record level security, or 2-factor authentication, which is where it says, hey, you're logging on from this new machine. I don't recognize this machine before. Let me send you an email. Then you can give me the confirmation code, right? You've all seen this. In Cloud 2, FileMaker has this, but not in the Cloud 1 or the FileMaker Server Pro. In Cloud 2, if we go down that road, you'll see, even in some of the videos, it can do 2-factor authentication. So he decides he's going to invent this. And Taylor does this. Taylor's a great guy, really smart. He writes it in, because to do all this sort of like, it's going to email me and verify that, and then it matches this machine and all this sort of stuff. It's all scripted. And so he goes, yeah, it's kind of like, pretty much foolproof. And I go, okay. So I put it out to the FileMaker community saying, here's this file. It's on the server. In fact, I'll even send you, no. It was a file that was running on the server. I gave them all the information, and I said, I'll pay whoever can break into it $200. Okay. And so the security, so this is like the third, I put $200 out there to a bunch of guys who I could have done it probably for free and they would have done it just to get the PR, but I put $200 real dollars or $500, whatever it was a chunk of change. And I said, whoever can break into, I'll give you the money. Because I didn't think anyone could do it. I was making a great video. Well, the security was based with scripts, which is not that secure. And so there was a race between Wim DeCourt and Josh Ormond, who were two, if I draw this chart over here, they exist, they're like the 1 pixel over here to the right of the right of the right. These are like some of the sharpest guys I know. And they hacked that file, they got into it and ripped the data out of it in 8 minutes. And they were racing, and Wim did it in 10, and Josh did it in 5 or 6 or 8 minutes. And so I had to write a check and eat a ton of crow. And so that's how I know about this. It's when you get into you on TV, on a video, it wasn't a live stream, but it was good enough that, you know, the weekly videos we were doing. It's embarrassing, but then you learn your lesson. I don't mind paying people to break into it, but you have to understand that it forces a new level of understanding of the FileMaker security. If you want to tell people, I'll pay you to not break into something, you need to make sure the security is utterly and completely set up here, okay? Where you come to this area, you create a new person, you get all that set, you do this, you create a new privilege set, you start restricting access into records, into layouts, you get in here and you manage it with here. You can't manage it in scripting, which means that you are limited in what you can do because there's only, you know, there's no scripts that can fire here, etc. And so you have to manage the security in here. So this is the $13 million or the $500 security area as opposed to the workflow. So I don't know if you ever heard that story, Christian. That was about 4 years ago. So, so you're talking about, okay, so FileMaker calls, and this is a really good one here. FileMaker calls where we hide stuff over here. It's a really good conversation by Christian Jesse. I'm not sure if it's Christian or Jesse Christian or just CJ. Maybe it's a mouthful. This is this hiding. When you go over here to the layout mode, you go to the right pane, right panel, and you come down here to the hidden. So if I zoom in here, we have says hide the object when, right here. And so it's not really you could have it check a field in here, right? So then you can control it via field. So that's how you control this. FileMaker, internally at FileMaker, the engineers call this POV, or for programmatic object visibility. But problem is POV is a trademark term. As dumb as that is, it's more like a definition. So they couldn't use that term. So they just said hide object when, but it's POV. So the POV is set here. You could, strictly speaking, say hide object when flag equals 1, for example, right? And so we could do that. I mean, that would be a useful part of the conversation here. We could say we've locked out these fields here. Let's just do these fields right here. That one there. Oh, shoot. I'm screwing that up. Hang on. So we go here. We can say, and the problem is kind of a double negative. You got to be careful about it. It's not show object when, like, show is a positive thing. Negative is a take it away thing. And then you have like, don't hide it when this is not happening. You get double negatives. I'm not that smart of a guy. I'm pretty dumb. And so as a result, double negatives cause my head to hurt. And so I would always go to someone like Christian and say, hey, how do you do this? But you kind of have to read the words. Hide object when, and then we go to the calculation. We would say the hide it when the flag locked, hide it when it is locked. So we would say equals 1. But you could say when it's not locked, which would be not 1, but you could try that. You go to browse mode. And so now not only can you, it's hidden as well, right? So then you can edit it, right? So but the problem is that then you've totally, you'd like to be able to lock it, stop the editing of it. Programmatic editing, that would be really great. So if you come over here where you say allow the entry into the field or allow them to edit it, make that programmatic too, right? Instead of saying allow entry if this calculation is functional. That would be cool. They could totally do that. They got other things to do. So Media Sandbox says, who provides a service to audit the security of a solution before deployment? Yeah, that's like guaranteeing, we guarantee or your money back kind of thing. Yeah, the most of consultancies, good FileMaker consultancies, you have to make sure you have some people in the company. Listen, there's a lot of FileMaker consultants that live out in this world here, and you can be very successful being this person here. But you get to this by years of experience, in my case, in security, getting your added to you by a couple guys that are better than you are. And then you learn from that. The goal is make a mistake once and you learn, or you learn from other people's mistakes. I guarantee other people learned from my mistake. It was pretty exciting because I didn't mind paying the money. That wasn't the problem. It was the bad PR of the whole incident. So at a file level, what is recommended for strong security? So someone's asking, like, if you have the $13 million universal adapter conversation, what is max security? So the max security is encryption at rest. So here's the thing with encryption at rest. So encryption at rest is where FileMaker encrypts your file. So if I come over here to the training and I type EAR, it's in here. So it's encryption at rest. You need to watch this, okay? This is like attaching a really pissed off pit bull to your database, a pit bulldog, right? The problem is, the good part about it, if someone gets your file, unless they're the NSA and they have time to chew on it, they can't break into it. I think the U.S. government, probably some of the NATO countries, got their stuff together, really top cryptology kind of stuff, could probably break into it if they directed an attack at the database, but it's hard to get into it unless you're that kind of government agency. Encryption at rest makes it far more, encrypts the data to a point where, like, some of you go like in the last week, I've had 3 people email me going, I lost my password. I don't know what it is, right? Okay, well, people say, don't leave the password on your desk. So here's what people do. You say, here's the secret password to the database. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And so you can't really see that, but that's there. And then they put it on your screen down here, okay? Now, I used to think that was the dumbest thing on the planet. Anymore, I tell people, put it on a Post-it note and put it on your computer. You know why? Because if you tell them, write the password down and don't put it on a Post-it note, they go saying words to themselves, right? And then they go, I'll do it later. There it goes. And so it goes nowhere. And then they forget it. And if you lose the password and the file is encrypted, you're never going to get the data back ever again. That's why when you hear the password, you write it down. It's so important to write it down. And if the only thing you can do is write it and put it on your iPad, on a Post-it note on your computer, then do that, please. But I would recommend putting it on your computer or on a physical pad on your computer, not a laptop because that could get stolen. But put it on your home computer, or put it in a safe. If you have like important documents, like where your social security card is, your government documents, things like that, in a filing cabinet somewhere, put it in there. But that will keep people, if they get the file, from breaking into it. Those 3 people this week didn't have here installed, so we were able to help them. But and there's a program that you can buy, and it doesn't give you the password; it just blows it out and resets it, the admin password on it. Obviously not approved by FileMaker, not sanctioned by Claris or anyone else. It's just, it is what it is. So is the data under the slides or Transport Web Viewer visible when using WebDirect, Inspect Element? Accordions might also hide data via, so once again, Dean, on the YouTube side, once again, we're talking about obscurity, security through obscurity, so kind of hiding it. But if someone has read and write access to the file, they're probably going to be able to get in. So, for example, one of the big avenues of hacking a FileMaker file, very, very important to understand this. So say this is our super duper FileMaker file, okay? And so say I have so follow this along, very important. I have administrative access. I give everyone else in the company read-write access, okay? And then TK, our resident stormtrooper, TK 55678, his eyes are rolling around in his head right now because he did this to my file. We were sent the video player out for beta testing, and he tore that thing apart like one of those ninjas over here, like one of these little like red evil ninjas over here on the right side, the senior ninja guys. So he's kind of people are funny because they have like very senior skills, and you have these other skills that are missing, but he did this. So here's the deal. What you can do is you can actually create another FileMaker file, yourself, and then have it relationally through an external data source talk to this file. And you say, well, you can't do that. You don't have administrative access. You don't have to have administrative access. All you have to do is have read-write access. Then you can attach the two together. And then in your file, which you have administrative access to, you can go over that other file and just say, give me a relationship, a Cartesian join relationship that gives me all the data. And so you instantly can get in there and suck all the data out and change the data. And so this is a major threat vector. So the ear password is one, it keeps people from hacking the code out of it. This other one is a major threat vector. FileMaker knows this, they patched it. We don't talk about the patch that often unless you go to our training or you talk about it. So you come in here, you set up your security, right? We're setting up our security. You're over here, you're doing this, you say advanced settings down here at the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in. And what you have to do is turn on file access. And so what this does is it immediately restricts access to a set of trusted files. So if you have, like if you have a single file solution, then you don't trust anything, which means that unless another file cannot attach itself to your file unless it's part of that trusted group. Makes sense? So it totally protects against the TK55678 threat vector, which is create another file that's kind of trusted and it comes in and then gets all your data out. And so by default, FileMaker files trust all files. So if you don't do this, it's not a threat unless someone can get into the file in some way. If they can read data and edit data like an end user, like one of your employees or contractors or whatever, then it's a threat vector. This is a threat that can come in and do this. But are the people working for you, is there motivation in there? Do you have $13 million in there they want, or $500 or whatever, right? If not, then maybe it's not a problem. But so when we went in and locked our player app, we did the we removed the administrative access. We also locked down that file that way. So TK55678 just really did a great job on stuff. So very, very, very good job on that. Andre, I'm going to research your thing and probably come back to that at some point. I'm not going to be able to do it right now because I don't. Christian, have you worked with a evaluation assurance level?
Sorry, an evaluation of insurance level?
Evaluation assurance, not insurance assurance. If you're on YouTube, you'll see the conversation. Hey, we got.
Oh, I have not. Okay, yeah, I saw him put. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the conversation that someone was asking about. I think it was Media Sandbox about, hey, can someone certify that a file is secure or something like that? So I guess there would be companies that would do that. I mean, I wouldn't do it, but we'd make sure that we signed a pretty big liability release on that. I don't mind doing our best effort on something, but yeah, that's kind of a tricky, as a boss who doesn't, I mean, we don't, run around and get into lawsuits and stuff like that. It's an automatic sticky area for us to guarantee that someone's stuff. I can just tell you what we do.
Can I throw something out on that topic too? And some of the users I know are going to hate this. And I'm not telling everyone out there that you shouldn't have secure files, but knowing your audience and who's interacting with your stuff, I think is really important. I've had customers right off the bat invest incredible amounts of energy into the security, and getting the security to work nicely requires a lot of testing. And, I used to have a job where we would sell and work on Apple computers, and I had a lot of senior citizens that would come in that were petrified that hackers on the internet wanted to get into their computer and steal their medical information. And that's just not really happening. The energy that people would put to get into their computer, they would rather go after the Target Corporation and get 1 million credit card numbers. And so if you have data with very sensitive information, by all means protect it. But my experience a lot of times with the security on computers and FileMaker files is that people do a really good job at locking themselves out and not anyone else. And that's where I think things like the workflow is really effective for a lot of situations. So like our video player, it makes a lot of sense that we need to have that incredibly protected because we're giving it out to the FileMaker community and we're giving it out to people that are equipped with tools, knowledge, and experience to actually hack into these things. But then when you actually have your user base, how many of your customers, how many people know your file exists that are going to use the knowledge and tools out there to go and hack it? So again, I know people are probably going to throw their arms up because everything should always be absolutely secure. But I think knowing your audience level and who's interacting with you and who you would be a target to can really help you to decide what that bar of security should be.
Yeah, and also if someone gets in and blows it up, you know, if you follow our recommendations and you have good backups, right? Which some of you don't do, I know. I'm looking through. If you feel guilt in your heart right now because you're not backing up your files, I know I can already see the guilt through the camera. If you have backups and then something bad happens, then you know what's your liability, you know, and how much. Once again, I'm going to go back to my $13 million motivational adapter, universal adapter there. But how much is actually in there that they want to get? Like for example, I'm pretty sure that no one cares Elzo where he's at and what his medical condition is. Now, if Elzo is like a George Soros or some sort of billionaire, then yeah, Elzo should be in a panic, right? He wants security and everything, right? You know, lock him down, like you know, Blackwater private security guys with assault rifles protecting his house and you know Humvees and stuff. But unless Elzo is worth you know say $50 billion or something, then no one cares, right? I mean, I know that. I mean, what was that line? Just because I'm what's the line? I'm not neurotic, but if I'm I'm spacing out too much, not enough caffeine today. But if you're just because someone's I wouldn't say neurotic, but it doesn't mean someone's not out trying to get you, right? It's the term for that, right? So Nathan says, follow recommendation every 15 minutes, save my butt many times. Yes, please make backups during normal business hours, then daily and weekend. Yeah. And so once again, if someone got into your system and destroy, so we have this customer who's a doctor who's on the East Coast. We didn't set up her server, but she had a password of like 1234, and she had backups, but someone decided just to teach her a lesson. They logged onto her Amazon Windows server, and they basically erased the hard drive remotely. And so because she had backups, we could restore her data. But then we're like, well, how'd this happen? Well, and then we go back and start figuring out her password, and 1234, whatever it was not secure. Then we have another customer who got blown up because they didn't run they hadn't run updates on Windows in like 5 years, and so someone used a vulnerability to get into that box. So once again, it's the business of security is a very complicated one. Once again, I'm not really talking about so much server security, although it's an important idea. It's mostly about FileMaker security, FMP12 security, keeping people out of your file. If you give them the file, you got to really be careful. So understand, this is a slight comment here. I want to point something out. On the video player right here, it's not ear. There's no ear encryption on here. So you can use the password hacker to open this up. Okay? But FileMaker has another safety feature in the product. And what they do is that you can, if you have the file closed, you go File, you go to Database, Utilities right here. And you go to Add. And you find the file that you want to add. So you would add, say, this sample file. Okay, so it's already open. Let me just open a different one. Let me add a different file here. I want to add one of these if case or whatever it was. Here is a file right here. So you add it right here. I don't know if you can see this. It's a little bit. So you add the file right here. So once we're in developer utilities, we got to under right here. And then this is where you used to be able to create a runtime and that kind of stuff. And I say, well, I want to specify it goes to a certain place, but I want to hit this right here. This is really the important part. So in here it used to be create a runtime. It's removed, but remove access for administrative access from the file permanently. So this is the thing. I remove this is another security thing you can do if you're going to give people the FileMaker file. You remove the administrative access. It cannot be put back in. So if someone has a FileMaker file that's eared, you cannot hack you cannot reset the administrative password. If it's not eared and the administrative account is still in there, then there's the third party. If it's like 50 or 60 bucks on Windows only, and it will go in and it doesn't give you the password, it just resets the administrative password. But if you use this checkbox right here, you can completely remove it, and that does protect you. So you can open it with this tool, but the tool can't help you because there's nothing it can reset because the administrative credentials are gone. Now this also means that it's a one-way. It's like a one-way suicide mission for the file. The file that you output here, cannot be undone. There's no undo for this, right? You're removing the administrative. So don't do that to your master file. If you look over here on our file, when we have the version number, you'll see this X17. So that's a way of indicating a build number. So that's the 17th build of our training file. The L means that's locked, which means that we remove the administrative access from it. So this file can never be opened in layout mode. You can never edit scripts with it. It is permanently damaged, if you want to say, but that's the wrong word. It's been permanently altered with that capability right here. So that's really a good one right there. So that's a pretty cool one. All right. And then also TK55678 talks about backups. You want to make sure you back up off-site, not just a server. So if you have a server in your office sitting in front of you somewhere, you want to, there's hurricanes, there's floods, there's tornadoes, there's fires, there's people protesting in the street. So if your server is in the front of a Walmart somewhere, then you need to have off-site backups. So when they break in and they steal the server, I actually literally had a customer. It was another field services customer. This is 15 years ago. No, it was about closer to about 2000. And they had a FileMaker server in the closet with backup drives on it. And they think it was an inside job. An employee broke in, was pissed with them, decided he would take the Mac, it was a Mac server, and he would go and peddle it off for a pawn and sell it. Well, all their databases were in that closet. So when he cleaned out the hardware, they lost all their backups too. So offsite backups, robbery, zombie apocalypse, fire theft, hurricanes, really important. So, and then you go to different building for sure at a minimum, and ideally a different geographical area. So if you have a flood in a town and your server is 5 feet underwater, the database, which is worth probably millions to you potentially, is in a safe location. It's always easier to get another server. I mean, a server in a worst case, say Amazon, a 747 crashes into an Amazon data center. Legitimately, could happen. Amazon has backups within that region, and they are always constantly reading and writing to each other. So there's like 3 in one region. Like if you go to Portland, Oregon, there's three or four buildings, and it's called availability zone within that region. And there's 3 or 4 or 5 data centers there that are all backing it, and they're different buildings. They're unmarked. No one knows. So if 747 hits the building, whammo, all those other buildings can backstop it. So pretty serious about backups there. So, and then you take Ron said put on a USB thumb drive, take it off site with you. I do that too sometimes. So cool. So I think we've kind of hit this conversation a little bit. Yeah, the GDPR, Andre, is a conversation probably for another broadcast. But once again, if you store any personal information about people, and if any of those customers are in Europe, there's this GDPR thing, which means that you have to be able to encrypt the data. GDPR is an interesting thing. It applies to everyone, but it's yeah, I don't even want to get into that conversation right now. But when people start buying and selling mailing, I still have people trying to sell me mailing lists. Like, hey, Richard, would you like 50,000 people who use FileMaker and you can just spam them with your mail? Okay, that's illegal in Canada and Europe and in California too. I think you can't do that. And so because of that bad behavior of people trying to do that, that was the go-to thing 10 years ago. And now because of that, these laws pop up. And then so legitimately, if you're managing customer data, you have to be thoughtful about encrypting it, even their address or phone numbers and stuff. They want all that, what they call personal identifying information. PII or whatever they want to call that. So there you go. So good conversation today. All right, well, once again, reminder that we all recommend that we keep referencing our training here, but there's a reason for it because there's only so much we can do in an hour. If you don't have our training, I highly recommend you go out and get our training. I'm going to cancel that. This is the new video player for the training right here. Pretty slick. We are actively I had people today saying, hey, where's the work files? Okay, when you select a course over here, the work file download will be right up there. And then so it's all in here. We are actively working on stuff. If you look at this, you'll get a message saying that we're working on the course. I think we just finished loading FileMaker Pro 17 in here. I don't think it'll generate. I need to run an update on this. Other thing is people are asking me questions. They're not running updates. Please run an update to refresh the data because we're loading more and more and more content in here. This process will probably end up taking 20 or 30 seconds at some point. As you notice, we have 1,571 videos, and we haven't loaded them all in here yet. So that's what always... that's why it gets so crazy. So if I click on this now, yeah, there's no message. It just popped up. That's because we have finished loading the 17 course in here. Although that doesn't look correct to me. There should be more than one video right there. Oh, because I have ear in here. Hang on. Oh, that's a good bug. So when I change courses... So we have a request. I don't want to change topic too far, but we have a request. We'll talk about this tomorrow, but the search capabilities in here, kind of beef them out and adjust them. But make sure you run the update button right here. Please do. And if you're interested in the video training, go to fmtraining.tv here and check out our training bundles. If you would like a discount coupon, just send us an email to support@rcconsulting.com and we'll give you a coupon for these, all right? I appreciate it, everyone. And Ron says check out the training program. Yeah, it's a good point. I'm going to pass one last thing. Check out the coaching program. Also, I have a senior engineer just coming off of some project work who's available. Quite talented. For those of you know, Jonathan Ray, he's the one who did, he coded the web portal wizard. He also did the latex integration, stuff like that. He's available to pick up on some project work. So if you need a senior engineer and you want to get engaged on some stuff, shoot us an email to support.RC Consulting and we can get that going for you. So with that, I appreciate it. David White threw a question here. Yeah, David, I'm going to save this tomorrow. We're kind of long on time today. We will pick up that question tomorrow, or just take it offline. If you want to shoot us an email, if we're not here and you want to ask a tech support question, shoot us an email to support@rcconsulting.com. And if it wasn't 13 minutes over time, then I would have engaged on that right now. So that's it for today. I appreciate it. Thank you, Christian.
Thank you.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected, the quarterback. Great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap. Stands in, throws it left for Amendola. Reaches up and snacks a high throw and lands inside the 10. Rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, but Danny makes the grab.